Hello and welcome back to the Great Sandbox tutorial. In today's episode, we are going to be covering wood, specifically for floors, walls, and ceilings. We will not be covering wood elements that are used in furniture or other objects within the game. So I have gone ahead and put together just a very simple brick house, a single door, and a window. I've also gone ahead and put a light in here and painted the walls white just to make this a little bit easier for us to see as we explore our various options. So first things first, we go ahead and grab our surface finishes tool and we hit Q. As always, we have options and we go down into our surface finishes. We've talked about paint. Now let's talk about wood. So in Sandbox, they were a little bit kinder to you than in the base game. They actually organized these. So you have cool woods. These you cannot colorize, but you can definitely choose different patterns and cuts for your finish. Then you have custom color wood. So these are types of woods that you'll be able to customize the color of. Then we have warm woods, which definitely, if you pair with a warmer lighting, will help accentuate and draw out the warmness of the wood tone that you pick. And then we have neutral woods, which can be used large part for most everything that you're doing, and lighting can definitely affect it, but not to a point where it becomes, odd or unusable. Starting off, just picking a basic driftwood. Actually, let's pick European walnut. First time everybody comes in here, we pick European walnut. It looks absolutely gorgeous bit of wood. I always recommend using it if you can, but it was my first wood that I used when I first came into the game. So coming to this, you'll get some different options. Cut pattern's the first one. So if you don't have a cut pattern, you'll just have your basic wood here. So if I were to come down here and just put it down on the floor, you can see what I'm talking about. It's a beautiful cut. The striation, the pattern, it just looks really, really lovely. Really like this walnut. Now, when you don't have a cut pattern on here, the only option you'll get is rotation, and you'll be able to change the rotation so you can turn it sideways. So like we could come up and do like this, and you can create intersecting patterns if you want and have fun with it to your heart's delight. The next pattern is something new that they added. This is more of like a brick look. I don't necessarily recommend this with wood, but I've been playing around with it recently. And I wouldn't put this on the floor, but if we put it on a wall, I think that's really cool. Different, lighter versus the darker. I don't know. I don't know if I'm necessarily doing the whole wall that way, but I think it does look really cool with wood. It's mostly meant for tile and stone, so you can create like a brick look, but I don't know. I think that looks really, really good. And then you have squares. So with the squares, you can change the rotation, so you can turn them diagonal however way you want. You can change the size. So at 0, you are getting, I believe it's 4. Yeah, so you get 4 squares to a single block. So then 1 is 1 per block. 2 is going to be 4 blocks per square. And then 3 goes up and gives you the 4x4 per square. So we do this whole area here. You can see what I'm talking about. The bigger you go, the bigger the line gap that you'll see through these. So just keep that in mind when you're using this pattern. Now, one of the cool things this pattern gives you, if I drop it down one, is it gives us the option to do this cut pattern rotation, and it will randomize the rotation for every square block. So now when I put this down, it creates an absolutely cool effect. Not something I would use on the floor, but putting this as an accent wall or a feature wall, I think that looks absolutely amazing. Then we have some pattern type of blocks. You have this kind of pattern. This you might see on a ceiling. It'd be a pretty good ceiling block to have. Maybe not this large, but you get the idea. Pretty cool. And then you have your hexagons. And again, this one you can choose up to 2 types of rotation just to give it a little bit more variation. And we can up the size again if we want. And again, the bigger the size, the bigger the gaps are between each piece of wood. And then we have another pattern. This one's kind of new. It looks more like a basket weave. This one does not have has a rotation, but does not have a cut pattern rotation. Again, I like this for an accent, but not necessarily for your entire floor. It can work for your entire floor. Don't get me wrong. If you get the right wood, but to each their own. It looks cool. Maybe not something super modern though. This one here is also another new kind of wood pattern. I do like this one. Haven't found a use for it yet. And if you do, let me know in the comments. Again, I think this is more like one of those kind of accent type of items where I would add it as, you know, like trim to something as opposed to like an entire wall or an entire floor. It definitely can work as flooring, but maybe not necessarily for me. And then we have this cut here, which looks very much like you can get it maybe to look like log cabin-y or even like siding, depending on the type of material you use. And then you can also rotate it. You know, that can be a pretty good wall to use if you want. And then very similar to that is this one here. This one has no stops. We put these side by side. You can see this one looks more like wood planks, whereas this one looks more like wood logs. And then we have these big, huge squares. I do like these. I've used these quite a lot. You can get the cut pattern size really big, and you can get it to look like that, which I think looks really, really cool. And then you have this one here, which is just individual wood pieces, but laid out very organized. So you can see it's all the same throughout. No differences there. I've not found a very good reason to use this. I'm sure I will one day, but I've seen some of the base game houses use this pattern, especially with like decking. But I don't know, you can't choose when your pattern starts, and that bothers me. So like oftentimes I'll get a pattern that starts, as you can see here, it's not the full block here, and that bothers me. Then we have our probably most used type of flooring option, which is your basic parquet. Nice good pattern. You can also rotate this so you can even get a little bit even crazier with your pattern. And then obviously you can make it bigger or smaller. You know, something small like this you probably wouldn't have on the floor. You'd have this on the wall. put this on the wall, you'll see it's kind of a cool effect. And then just straightening it out on the floor would probably look a little bit better. And then we have some types of herringbone. So this is the interlocking blocks concept. This definitely is something you'll see mostly on the floor. You will see this on the walls from time to time, but mostly this is a flooring. And then you have your other type of herringbone. I like that one. Really cool with the way again, the colors change, the patterns change with each individual lay. And then last one here, kind of like a high fives kind of look. Very, very old school. I don't know, I'm just not a fan. To each their own, just not for me. Probably your most used woods, I do see a lot of like driftwood and European walnuts and ebony. Outside of that, you'll see a lot of cedar. Doesn't have a whole lot of change in pattern, especially when you're dealing with like flooring. So if I put this on the floor, it'll brighten the whole room up. Yeah, like cedar. I wish there was just a cedar. Right now they just have a light cedar and a red cedar, which again looks good, but yeah. Wish they just had a cedar. That would be very helpful. Then you have your mahogany, which you'll see a lot with furniture, less so with flooring, but you will see it from time to time. This is a very different look and feel of mahogany than the first game's version of mahogany. This one definitely has a much warmer tone to it, almost a red undertone. I don't know what I feel about it. If you want to go really red, you can go with the American Cherry. That'll definitely turn things really red. And then they have a high gloss wood, which is probably something that's better suited to furniture than it is to flooring. It almost looks dirty when it puts on flooring, but you can see it's got a high gloss, has a reflection on it. I don't recommend putting that on floors or walls. Brazilian cherry. This one has a really good pattern within it. That is a nice, rich kind of cherry. I really like this one, especially on furniture. And then we have a dark beech, which also works really well, especially if you've got more of a traditional, darker wood flooring that you need to have. This one works really, really well. Add something else to it. I don't know, just a beautifully rich wood. Moving on to some of these other types of woods, you get into your European ash, and then you start to get a little bit darker with the American ash, and then you get a little bit darker into oak, and then into the yellow wood. I like the patterns in the yellow wood. I think it looks really good. Oak. I mean, oak is used for most everything, but for some odd reason in the game it looks kind of plain. And then the ash really gets washed out depending on your lighting. As you can see this almost looks like a white floor, and it really gets washed out. Alright, moving on. Stained mahogany. This is a newer one that they added into the game. Really like this one. Not necessarily for flooring. It does work for flooring, but I really like it for furniture. I think it looks really, really good. And then we get into light beech. So there's your light beech, which doesn't really have much of a pattern to it. Then we have Brazilian walnut, which has a pretty good pattern to it. Little bland. And we have American walnuts, which has a crazy pattern to it. American walnut is something that you would probably want to do like this to create a log cabin feel. That looks very log cabin-y. like actual logs. Then we have the dark winge or wingy, depending on how you want to say it. Nice thing about this in House Flipper 2 is it doesn't look purple like it did in House Flipper 1. And then we have red beech. Red beech, also one of my favorite woods, especially for flooring. It's a nice rich tone. It's a little bit darker than most people's flooring, but I really do like it. Now, one thing that gets really hard to do is determining the custom color woods. So really, when you're choosing one of these woods, you're choosing it either for a piece of furniture or cabinetry in which you want to colorize into, like, you know, light teal or an aqua or red or something, so you can make cabinetry that is wood but also, you know, interesting, like you painted it, as opposed to buying, you know, basically plastic. When you're in here, the other thing to consider is the pattern in the wood, so the striation, and the undertone. So grabbing a stained elm, if we were to go into this, you get to choose your color, and the undertone to this is like a light brown undertone. So any color you choose is going to have that underneath of it. So you can accentuate that brown by choosing something that is brown. Whereas if you put something that has a color to it, you're gonna notice that you have to darken the color a lot in order just to get the color into it. So like if we were to grab this, you'll see how dark that comes in. And if we lighten it up, it's still got that kind of brown undertone to it. Not something I would put on the flooring. This is something I would use for furniture, but yeah, but you can really darken it up if you choose something that is brown. So now you can see we've almost got one of the woods we saw earlier, but with a different pattern. And just so everybody knows, the brown I'm talking about is if you count up from the bottom of each section, on the right hand side you go up 4. It's the orange tones here, and it'll allow you to kind of take a look at something that's a little bit more into the browns kind of coloring. So again, you got to look out for the undertone for this. So if like we pick a stained chestnut and we were just to go white, the stained chestnut has an insane pattern to it. It looks really good. I don't know about flooring, but you could just see that pattern. The white works with it, but if I choose that same white with stained birch, it's not white because the undertone is a light brown. So you can really accentuate and draw different colors by using these different stains. So even like a stained beech with the white, you can see it's actually just a gray. Grayish brown, I guess. And if you choose the stained walnut, it is just a gray when you're choosing white. As with all these, you know, especially if you're doing flooring, most flooring is either, you know, a shade of, you know, grayscale or a shade of brown. So you would probably want to, like for instance, if we're taking this European walnut, is to go down and find something in the browns, for instance. And we'll get a lovely flooring here. We can lighten it up a little bit. There we go, like that. And that almost looks like that original walnut that we were looking at earlier. Oops, the European walnut. Look how close that is. You can barely tell the difference. And so in this way you can play around with the different colors and patterns to get yourself the different type of effect you're looking at. Even with pine, being able to get, you know, nice rustic pine flooring down. That knotted pine looks really, really good here. But again, for flooring and for most walls, if you're gonna colorize your wood, you want to stick with something that is in that brown scale or in the gray scale. So even just taking the pine and putting it into a black like this, it actually shows up black, but if we were to lower the temperature on our lighting, it actually looks a little bit brown, because the warm lighting is pulling out the browns from this black polish that we put down on our floor. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing colors. There's no right or wrong way of doing this, but you know, you will notice differences in color palettes and variations. Like this one has a little bit of patterns for the glossy painted, whereas the painted wood doesn't. It's pretty plain painted wood. I mean, you can create wainscoting throughout your house using the painted wood, for instance, and using this piece here, rotating it up. Maybe we'll do like this. So you can put that down, and then you can flip it like this to create the top, like that. Probably also copy that same top and put it down at the bottom. Make some pretty good wainscoting patterns. You can see it even looks three-dimensional even though it's on a flat space here. And you can use that to create wainscoting. So in this episode we've talked about flooring, how lighting can draw out different things with the flooring. We've talked about some different options for walls with wood and using wood for wainscoting. And then obviously ideals for some ceiling patterns that you can do. There's no right or wrong way of doing things, but traditionally the way homes are done, they tend to have something that's either grayscale or brown scale for flooring. Walls can be a lot of different things, and furniture tends to use a lot more of the painted varnish kind of woods for all of them. So with that, I know I didn't cover everything about wood, but just wanted to give you an idea on some of the things you can do with wood flooring, wood ceilings, wood walls. I hope you enjoy, and I will see y'all next time. Thanks.